The realm. Do you know what the realm is? It's the 1,000 blades of Aegon's enemies. A story we agreed to tell each other over and over till we forget that it's a lie.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back for another Game of Thrones Season 8 video. In today's video, I want to talk about our favorite Red Priestess, Melisandre. Before we get started, I just want to give everyone a heads up. The winner of the giveaway will be announced at the end of the video, so for those of you that entered, make sure you stay until the end to find out if you won. Now let's get started. If you have stayed up to date with some of my previous Melisandre videos, then you would know I believe Melisandre will sacrifice herself in order to help Jon Snow and Daenerys Targaryen defeat the Night King. The reason why I say that is because Melisandre has been preparing for this day ever since she was introduced. During Melisandre's introduction, she held a ceremony where Stannis Baratheon pulled a flaming sword out of the chest of one of the statues on the beach of Dragonstone. The ceremony was held as the Red Comet was flying high across the sky, and I believe this will actually come into play when Melisandre finally performs the ultimate sacrifice, which is sacrificing herself for the greater good of the realm. With the limited information we have, we know Melisandre was last seen on Dragonstone talking to Varys, as Jon Snow and Davos began to walk to the castle to greet with Daenerys Targaryen. During Melisandre's last conversation, she did say a few interesting things which could indicate what will happen in her storyline in the final season. She told Varys she was heading to Volantis, but she also said she would be returning, most likely right in time for the battle against the Night King. As we all know, Melisandre also said something very ominous to Varys. She did say both of them would die in Westeros.
So where will you go?
Volantis.
Good. If you don't mind my saying, I don't think you should return to Westeros. I'm not sure you'd be safe here.
Oh, I will return, dear Spider. One last time.
My lady.
I have to die in this strange country. Just like you.
This is another reason why I think Melisandre will ultimately sacrifice herself in the end. She already knows she is meant to die. She basically told us she will not survive the final season. We still don't know why Melisandre is going to Volantis first, but I'm assuming it's something she feels she must do before the Night King arrives. Since Melisandre left in the middle of Season 7, we may never actually see her arrive in Volantis because she is most likely already there. But I'm hoping we could get at least a glimpse of what she does do when she is there. For those of you that don't know, when Tywin Lannister had ice melted down and reforged into 2 swords, the man he hired to do this was from Volantis. So perhaps this could have something to do with the reason why Melisandre chose to go there. Volantis is one of the 9 free cities in Essos, and it just happens to be one of the greatest, richest, and most powerful of the city-states. The fact that Melisandre chose to go here before the Great War begins is very intriguing, because there are a number of different things she could have planned. The main motivating factor for Melisandre going here must have something to do with the Temple of the Lord of Light. The Red Temple in Volantis is dedicated to R'hllor. The temple also happens to be protected by a private army of slave soldiers known as the Fiery Hand. I think most people believe this is exactly why Melisandre went to Volantis. This relatively small fighting force is made up of roughly 1,000 soldiers who are dedicated to serving the Lord of Light, and as we all know, they are pretty much the main religious group that is actively opposing the Great Other. Until now, no one else really thought the White Walkers ever existed, but the followers of R'hllor have been patiently waiting for this day to come, so I imagine they will play a very big part over the fate of the realm. After all, Melisandre did tell Jon she could help him beat the Night King, so she obviously has something specific in mind. But what did she actually mean by this?
I've been ready to die for many years. If the Lord was done with me, so be it, but he's not. You've seen the Night King, Jon Snow. You know the Great War is still to come. You know the army of the dead will be upon us soon. And you know I can help you win that war.
I have already talked about that scene in other videos, so I don't want to go too far down that road again. Now I want to talk about some other things Melisandre can do when she returns to Westeros. Let's talk about one of Melisandre's very special abilities. In the television show Game of Thrones, we have seen Melisandre and Thoros of Myr bring someone back from the dead. Melisandre was able to bring back Jon Snow, and Thoros of Myr was able to bring back Beric Dondarrion. In the books, Beric Dondarrion also has the ability to bring back the dead, and he is able to do this with the Kiss of Life, which is something he does to Lady Catelyn after she is murdered at the Red Wedding. We haven't seen Beric do anything like this in the TV show yet, but I happen to believe he could do this next season as his grand finale. But we do know Thoros of Myr and Melisandre can resurrect people. After Thoros of Myr brought Beric Dondarrion back to life the first time, it basically made it easier for him to do it again, because he was able to bring Beric back several different times. So when it comes to Melisandre, now that she has brought someone back from the dead, it may become easier for her to do this in the future, especially when you consider she is the main representative of the Lord of Light. I imagine Melisandre will be able to perform her own grand finale in due time, but we don't yet know what that is. Everyone will truly be tested next season, so we should see characters do things they have never done before. This goes for characters like Bran Stark, the Night King, and even Melisandre. We have seen her create a shadow baby that was able to kill Renly Baratheon, so perhaps she has some other crazy tricks up her sleeve. According to Melisandre, she can win big battles with her powers, but how? We heard her say this right after the Battle of the Blackwater Bay. According to Melisandre, she could have provided enough help for them to win if Davos would have let her go with them, but what could she have possibly done differently?
I wasn't there when the wildfire killed our men by the thousands. I could have saved those men. You would have taken the city, Stannis would now sit upon his rightful throne, and you would stand beside him. But I wasn't there, because you convinced your king to leave me behind.
She also said something very similar to Jon Snow in the clip I showed you earlier. These are at least 2 different times we have heard Melisandre say that she can win battles. One thing I have been wondering is how strong are Melisandre's powers when it comes to bringing people back from the dead. We know she struggled the first time when she tried this, but with next season being the last season, I imagine every character will be at the height of their powers. We know HBO wants to end the show on a very high note, so I would say almost anything is possible when it comes to characters with magical abilities. Like I said, what I've been wondering is how strong will Melisandre's powers be next season, especially when it comes to bringing people back from the dead. Let's take the Night King's army for instance, the Whites to be exact. The Whites are the seemingly mindless type zombies that make up the majority of the Night King's army. We have also seen the Night King raise the skeletons of dead bodies, but what I'm referring to are the Whites that are still fully intact. The bodies that have still been somewhat preserved in the harsh climate beyond the wall, similar to all the Whites that we saw at Hardhome. After the massacre at Hardhome, the Night King was able to raise all those fresh dead corpses, most of which had very similar wounds that Jon Snow and Beric Dondarrion did when they were killed and resurrected. Most of the wildlings were killed by getting stabbed, and you would think their bodies would still be preserved, especially when traveling with the Night King because the temperatures around him are much colder than normal. For many years now, fans have been wondering, will Bran Stark ever be able to overtake the Night King's army, since Bran and the Night King have very similar powers? But what about Melisandre? I don't think she would ever be able to enter a person's mind like Bran and the Night King can, but what if she was able to bring them back to life? We have seen her bring one person back to life, but what if she learns how to do this on a much larger scale? You also have to keep something in mind. Melisandre most likely will not return by herself. When Melisandre first met with Daenerys Targaryen, she said something to her that made me think she knew more followers of R'hllor would be in Westeros soon. Listen to what she says to Daenerys.
The Lord of Light doesn't have many followers in Westeros, does he?
Not yet. But even those who don't worship the Lord can serve his cause.
As you can see, Daenerys says, the Lord of Light doesn't have many followers in Westeros, does he? But Melisandre says, not yet. To me, that sounds like Melisandre knows more will be coming, and that most likely has something to do with the reason Melisandre went to Volantis in the first place. I bet she plans on returning with as many followers as possible, and we know they will all be devoted to Melisandre's cause. She could come back with Kinvara, the Fiery Hand, or dozens, hundreds, or thousands of people that have been training to become a Red Priest or Priestess. Imagine if she came back with an army that had the same type of powers that she does. Then they could definitely do things on a much larger scale. Let me give you an example. Now that the Night King is south of the Wall, we know there is only a short amount of time that will pass before the Great War begins. As the Night King moves south, he will begin decimating town after town. Eventually, the Night King will make it to Winterfell, where almost all the main characters are at. During the biggest battle in Game of Thrones history, The Night King and his army will kill a main character, or at least a character that we know by name. It is inevitable. You can't have a battle of that size without us suffering some losses. This is when Melisandre and whoever she brings with her can really assist Jon and Daenerys. If the Night King would happen to try and raise the character as a white, that's when Melisandre can step in and try to override the Night King's control. Or possibly even Bran Stark can try that. Imagine if they were able to do this at the same time the Night King was trying to turn that person into a white. They could potentially gain some insight into how the Night King's powers actually work, and that would obviously be very beneficial when trying to defeat him. I know it might sound crazy, but let's try to think outside of the box. Another reason Melisandre could be going to Volantis is to find out more information about the prince or princess who was promised. Not only did we see the ceremony on the beach of Dragonstone back in the second season, but the show continues to reference that prophecy as we get closer to the end. We all know Melisandre originally thought Stannis was the chosen one, but she later turns her sights onto Jon Snow. However, Kinvara happens to believe Daenerys is the chosen one. Not to mention, we did hear Missandei say the phrase is gender neutral, which means it could be the princess who was promised.
The Lord of Light doesn't have many followers in Westeros, does he?
Not yet. But even those who don't worship the Lord can serve his cause.
What does your Lord expect from me?
Bosses bantis amazis, merikivio dolalaris os machagon contas.
The prince who was promised will bring the dawn. I'm afraid I'm not a prince.
The truth is, we need your help. We'd hope that we could somehow persuade you to...
You don't need to persuade me. I came to help. Daenerys Stormborn is the one who was promised. From the fire she was reborn to remake the world.
Melisandre may be heading to Volantis to seek more knowledge. As we all know, she does still have trouble when looking into the flames. The flames do hold the answers, but Melisandre hasn't always been able to interpret them correctly. There should be some other high-ranking members at the temple who could assist Melisandre's ability to read the flames. She could also be given more powders and potions that could enhance all her powers. Maybe she has to do something very specific in order for the prince or princess that was promised to come to life. That could lead to Melisandre giving a blood sacrifice to the fire, which could be herself, and only then can the Chosen One defeat the Night King. One thing I would be really interested in seeing next season is if Bran and Melisandre were actually able to work together somehow. Those two characters combined would also make up Ice and Fire, and if they did work together, I think they could do some real damage to the Night King's numbers. Both of them have the ability to see things, but they both have problems when trying to process that information. But if they did work as a team, they might be able to figure out a few things that could really benefit Jon and Daenerys' fight against the Night King. At least in the television show, they both seem to be trying to do the same thing. Melisandre and Bran Stark want to stop the Great Other from laying the darkness over Westeros. Melisandre wants to bring the light, and Bran did name his direwolf Summer, so if they were to combine their powers, they might be able to achieve the same goal. Anyways, I just thought I would discuss some other options for Melisandre today, but if you have any different ideas of your own, feel free to leave them down in the comments section of the video. Now it's time to see who won the most recent giveaway. The winner of the Game of Thrones t-shirt is Carolina Garibe. Congratulations, just make sure to send me an email, that way you can pick out your shirt and I can find out where to send it. I will start a new giveaway in the very next video, so make sure you come back for that one to find out all the details about how to enter. I want to thank everyone for watching today's video, I really appreciate that, and I also want to thank everyone on Patreon for supporting the channel. Thank you all very much, I hope you have a great day, I'll see you soon. Bye.